Sziasztok! The Hungarian Heritage Podcast is back for Season 3, and we are Hungarian Heritage Stronger Than Ever. For those of you who have been here a while, welcome back, and thanks so much for sticking around. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome! I'm so happy that you're joining us. My name is Christine, and I'm the host here at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. During Season 3, I will continue to bring you guests and topics that celebrate Hungarian culture, people, and food. And of course, we will feature all of the cool things that Hungarians are doing around the world. Together, we will discover new things and review things that you may already know. And most of all, we will have a lot of fun along the way. One episode at a time, we will build those bridges between Hungarians who live in Hungary to those who live in other parts of the world. Not to mention the bridges we will build between the generations. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to strengthen your connection, then you've found the right place. Join me, and together we will connect your modern lives to your Hungarian heritage by expanding this Hungarian heritage community and making the circles of Hungarians around us Hungarian heritage strong. Welcome to this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. Today, we are speaking with Stephen Dalina, and he is here to tell us all about his amazing experience last summer on the Reconnect Hungary Birthright trip. Stephen is here to share with us about the application and interview process, as well as all of the fantastic things that are included by Reconnect Hungary in this program. You will also hear about the daily culturally enriching experiences, both in Budapest and outside of the city. The deep Hungarian cultural connections, the amazing food, and the lifelong friendships you will make with Reconnect Hungary's Birthright trip is something that you will never forget. If you're not yet familiar with Reconnect Hungary's Birthright trip, or you've been thinking about submitting your application, after you hear Stephen recount his culturally fulfilling experience, you will definitely want to submit your application to Reconnect Hungary immediately after this episode. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Dalina to the Hungarian Heritage Podcast today. He is here to tell us all about his experience with Reconnect Hungary, where he participated in a Hungarian Birthright program in the summer of 2024. Welcome, Stephen. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Hey, Christine. Look, I'm just excited to be here. Look, huge fan of the show. And I'm excited to, both be a part of the podcast and, talk about the great experience that was Reconnect Hungary.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say that you're a fan of the show. I feel like on a personal level, that makes me feel really great that people enjoy hearing the episodes that I put out there. So thank you for that. And obviously, we start every episode with talking a little bit about the guest's Hungarian heritage. But before we even do that, you and I met at Hungarian lessons. And so that's how Stephen and I met, taking Hungarian lessons in New Brunswick right before, the world shut down. We were all in an adult class, and that was a lot of fun. And we did it also a little bit over Zoom once things shut down. So where are you? Are you still studying? Have you put any more effort into learning Hungarian? I know I haven't been the best student since then. What's your experience so far?
I've continued picking up things here or there. It's been mostly Duolingo or just like the CDs that we have in class, just re-listening to them in the car.
Right.
So it's been, the basics are, polished, but I never took that next step.
Yeah, I feel like after that, world shutting down situation, our lives kind of like all took a little bit of a different turn, not necessarily in a bad way, but I feel like I lost the momentum of that type of studying, whereas I've done other things to increase my learning, on social media, just being exposed to more things. But I think that's one of my unwritten goals so far, is to really dive back into maybe taking a little bit more of a serious approach to being a better Hungarian speaker, which I will never be perfect. I know that. But I don't know. All we can do is try, right? So as they say, or as I've heard, And I've also experienced people in Hungary appreciate when you even try with just a few words. So I guess that's what we'll shoot for, right? Just doing our best. So, Stephen, before we dive into the Reconnect Hungary, tell us a little bit about your Hungarian heritage. Does it come from your mom, your dad, both? When did your ancestor first come here? Give us a little idea about that.
Yeah. I'm primarily Hungarian from my dad's side. I guess I would be from him. I'm third generation. My great grandparents came over after World War One, and they first settled in South River, New Jersey, and then moved up about two towns to Woodbridge, New Jersey, where they got into the tavern business, and they owned Dalina's Tavern for 60 years. And my grandfather was a huge inspiration for me growing up. And while he only spoke, bits and parts of Hungarian, I was able to at least, keep that in my day-to-day speech, like the Hungarianisms with my parents. And in college, history was my passion, so um, I really gravitated toward Eastern Europe with a focus on Hungary, and so that's actually what led me to join the class with you. So.
That's really
Uh,
cool.
and then an interesting tidbit. So my mom is not Hungarian. However, her godmother is Hungarian, and she fought in the 1956 revolution, and she was very close with our family. Still to this day, she was living next to my mom's side's grandparents in Ford's, also in
Oh,
Woodbridge.
wow.
So from both sides, there was a deep appreciation for the Hungarian heritage.
Right. So your mom isn't actually Hungarian, but she is Hungarian adjacent because of her godmother. So tell me a little bit about Delina's Tavern. I know it's not open anymore, correct?
No, it closed in 2001, 2003, somewhere in that
Okay.
area.
So now your grandfather owned that. Were there Hungarian inspirations in the tavern? Did he serve any Hungarian dishes or any Hungarian connection to the tavern?
Yeah, so there was always Hungarian, so a lot of paprika going in the food for some of the
Right.
recipes, but on certain occasions they would do salina out
Oh,
in
nice.
the parking lot, and some of those bits would end up in some of the meals. So it was a lot of I guess Americanization of Hungarian immigrant food.
Right. That's pretty great. So pretty delicious too, I imagine. So
Yes, yeah,
it's
yeah.
nice that, you had that growing up, that you had that connection because, we all have different stories about our Hungarian connectedness, right? And when our parents or grandparents or great grandparents came over, and it really, even just having like those experiences that you had really hit home with you, attaching like your ideas and your inspiration to study in college, like that Hungarian influence, which is pretty strong because you did your whole Eastern European studies when you were in college. So that's
Mhm.
pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So anything else about your Hungarian heritage that you want to share with us?
Always give a shout out to the Hungarian festival, usually early week of June. I don't think I've missed any in my entire life. So
Wow,
my parents, yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
almost, yeah, going on 29 years.
Wow, wow. That's amazing that you've been to every one of them. I have to say that I've actually missed some. And I know I've been going longer because I'm definitely older than you. Maybe old enough to be your mom, but that's out for discussion. We won't discuss my age right now. But so yeah, that's pretty cool. So the first Saturday of June every year, no matter what the date is, first Saturday of June is the Hungarian Festival in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So don't forget to check that out. So we're here to talk about your experience with a Reconnect Hungary, which essentially is a Hungarian birthright program. So, how did you find out about the program and this opportunity?
I think the first time was actually at the Hungarian festival in New Brunswick. I might have actually talked to Gabi
Okay.
there, but it was later at one of the artisan markets that they did.
Right.
During my master's, I finally picked up the pamphlet, and my dad's best friend, his two daughters went maybe the previous years ago, and they were
Okay.
Tara, and she was telling me it was a wonderful time. and I had wrapped up my master's. I was getting settled in a new job, and I was heading to. I was 27, going into 28, and I was like, why not me?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Why
yeah.
not you? And the timing was right. So sometimes in life that's important. Like the timing was right for you at that point. So what were the steps to the application process? Because although, there's an application process and they want people to apply, right? There are some steps that you have to take. What was that like?
Like I think people hear application
Right.
and they think of it as just like a wall, like I don't want to put in the effort. But
Hmm.
it was actually a really enjoyable experience. Individuals had to research their family history, do a little research on Hungarian history, and write a short. It was 2 to 3 page paper, which was easy. I just used my thesis, part of my thesis
Right.
for it. But the looking at your family's history and explaining your connection was a lot of fun because I went through my great grandmother Sherolta. I went through all these old photos of family members that were long gone, since my birth. But I understood more of my family's how they came to America and what their Hungarian heritage meant to them.
So that's pretty cool. In the process of the application process, you actually learned more about your Hungarian heritage because you had to dig a little deeper. I mean, you didn't have to dig deeper because you had the information, but
Mhm.
you did dig a little deeper and you found out more about your family, which is pretty cool that that was like a result of the process as well. Personally, it was great for you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I never knew. My great grandmother was in like a Hungarian like folk music band because they're from
Cool.
uh, Mezőzambor, which is in the northeast. I guess it's
Okay.
close to the Tokai white wine
Hmm.
region, and they had a ranch there, and that was very
Oh.
stereotypical. And I only knew the name of the village where they grew up, but I didn't know like geographically. Like I always thought it was next to Debrecen, but it was a little more northwest.
That's pretty cool. So the more you know, right? I mean, I feel like even at my stage and age, I'm still learning things about my family. So it's kind of an ongoing process when you're researching your family history. So I imagine that there's going to be more things that you'll learn along the way as you get older as well and dig a little deeper. So back to the application process, like you had to submit these forms. Was there an interview that you had to do for Reconnect Hungary?
Yes, there was a early round of interviews where you got to meet Gabi and
Hmm.
Danny. I don't believe Eshme was on my call, but it was just getting to know Gabi and Danny, who both have these wonderful stories. It had that family vibe to it.
Yeah, they're both great people and they are very warm and welcoming. So I imagine it was a very smooth interview process. So do you know some of the questions that they asked you? Like what are some things that they asked?
It was how did you hear about the program? Then it was some more of the background information, but it was also what do you want to get out of this trip, or
Hmm.
like what do you know about your family? And a big part of this trip was the reconnection.
Right.
So do you have family there? Can you get in contact with any of your distant relatives? I am not in contact with any of my potential relatives. Most of the village came over, but
Okay.
it was working with Gabi. I was able to help plan out a weekend that I could feel more connected with my heritage, even if it wasn't visiting family.
Oh, that's great. So it's interesting that they ask you those types of questions to make your reconnection experience more meaningful to you and your heritage, which is pretty great. So now there's an application, there's an interview process. Like once you're accepted to the program, Reconnect Hungary does pay for a portion of the trip because it is a birthright program,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Right.
extremely. You are given for all the weekdays or and some of the weekends living quarters and 3 square meals a day, and the food is very good. So
That's great. I mean, honestly, they're really providing a fantastic experience by providing living quarters and three meals a day. Like that's pretty great. So plus the US dollar goes pretty far there. So I imagine that's why you didn't have to use up all of the money that you had saved for the trip.
They also made it extremely accessible. How there is the for people traveling, you get the pass while you're in
Hmm.
Hungary to use both the buses and
Right.
light rail system, and they set that all up for you, so it wasn't jumping through government
Right.
bureaucracy. It was
Right.
done for you without
Like
having
without
to
you
do the
having to
hassle.
do it. So that's important to know if you're looking to put your application in. So, all right, you got accepted and you went on this birthright trip last summer. So, share with us what like a typical day would look like for you. Clearly, you did some cultural activities in the program. Like what did your day look like? So, let's divide it into like two parts because I imagine you did some things in Budapest, right? And
Mhm.
then you also did some things like outside Budapest. So, tell us what your typical day was like when you were in Budapest.
So it starts off fast. I'll use the word intense, but
Okay.
it's a good intense where
Okay.
the first day was you get dropped in the scavenger hunt to go find various landmarks around Budapest, and it leads you to like one of the museums you go
Okay.
visit. In this case, we visited this hospital that was a bunker during the various wars.
Right. Is that
Um,
the hospital in the rock? Is that what
Yeah, I believe
okay.
that's what the name
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, but you got to go see the Turul statue, and you're seeing all of Budapest in its glory. Going to see Fisherman's Bastion to go see Saint Stephen's statue, and
Right.
then Saint Stephen's Basilica. It ends in
Cool. So basically they drop you off and you do this scavenger hunt and at the same time you get to see the sights in the city. So
yeah.
was it only on the Buddha side on that first night when you did the scavenger hunt or did you go over to the Pest side across the river as well?
It was on both sides, so
Oh
you
wow.
got used to the light rail and the buses.
So how long did the scavenger hunt last? Like approximately. Like how many places did you have to look for?
I think it was about. I want to say it was maybe nine total locations. Like
Okay.
it would be like, oh, here's three things by the Tyrrell statue itself, and then two other smaller, lesser known.
Oh, that's smart.
And then
Okay.
how throughout Budapest there's also those small statues. Like it would be
Hmm.
like the Rubik's cube.
Oh, like
It
the
was
little mini statues that
yeah,
you see
yes.
all yeah, yeah.
Yes. There's like the Dracula one. It would be things like of that, like a couple of those on the way
Oh, that's
too.
cool. So you're getting like I think you said it very nicely. Like you see a lot of the like the larger tourist attractions, but you're also seeing some of like the smaller things along the way. So that's really awesome. So did at the end of the scavenger hunt, like did everybody like you met in one place? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, the end was St. Stephen's Basilica.
Oh, that's really awesome. That's great. So you did that in Budapest. How many days approximately were you in Budapest for the trip?
A vast majority was Budapest. 4 days outside of Budapest, so maybe 14 days
Oh, wow.
uh, Budapest and four non. I'm also adding in the weekends, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Honestly, that would have been a question I should have asked before. How long is this Reconnect trip?
yeah, I believe it was about for I think it was 18 days
Wow,
total.
that's a hardy trip. I mean, like they're
Hmm.
really giving you a lot for this experience. So you said the majority was in Budapest. So other than doing the scavenger hunt, tell me some things and places that you visited in Budapest, other than scavenger hunt wise. What did you do?
We visited Lake Balaton,
Okay,
and I'm gonna butcher this town's name,
that's okay.
Tihany. It was
Tigine? Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, off of Lake Balaton. We went to
Yeah.
the Abbey there,
Um,
had some of the lavender.
mhm.
There was this delicious langosh spot.
Yeah. I never met a langosh I didn't like, so you know.
I
So what's your favorite topping on a langosh? What was your
I like the sour cream, cheese, garlic, and then maybe a couple veggies. I
yeah.
was making sure to go into the different restaurants to try some of the other ones. I had one with
Yeah.
some like pepperonis and red onion on it. That was really good.
I remember growing up, my grandmother used to tell me, since you went out to Tihine near the Balaton, she's like, yeah, in the summer, we would go to the Balaton and we'd eat langosh. And even as a kid, I would say to myself, eating fried dough with cheese and garlic when you're in a bathing suit near the water, it seems so like the opposite of what you should do. But either way, langosh is great on on any day, whether you're near the beach or or at home. So okay, so you went out to the Balaton, you had langosh. What are some other things that you got to do?
We also went to Lenva in eastern Slovenia. So the
Okay.
eastern portion of Slovenia has a very sizable Hungarian minority that lives there.
Okay.
So it was going to the Hungarian embassy and consulate that were there,
Hmm.
and then seeing what life was like for the Hungarian minority there. And it was also in some of the most amazing wine region I have ever been to.
Wow. Wow. No, were you able to purchase any wine and bring it home, or there
I
just wasn't like places or spaces for that?
For my suitcase, I wasn't able to fit
Right.
any wine, but I made sure to have plenty of it that day.
That's good.
Yeah.
They're definitely in that region of Europe very famous for their wine. So I imagine it was delicious. So tell me about some other highlights, whether it was in Budapest or outside Budapest, of like experiences that you had that were pretty memorable on this birthright trip.
Some of the museums we visited, the Museum of Terror, that one was very sentimental for me. Like I said with
Yeah.
my godmother, how she went through
Hmm.
the '56
Yeah.
revolution and seeing what life was like for her in that
Yeah.
time. We also got to visit Corvinus University, and it was interesting comparing and contrasting American universities to the
Yeah.
Hungarian ones.
So tell me a little bit about that. What did you see that was similar and different about the university experience?
For their campus, it was very self-contained in like one building.
Okay.
However, it was extremely well kept. It
Okay.
wasn't like you didn't see a lot of like university students like just laying about with like trash. If there was, you
Hmm.
know, they had like their dining area was very out in the open and it was pristine. They came
Right.
over and cleaned it up immediately after they were done. It wasn't just like a cafeteria at like a university where you get up just you take your trash, but there's stuff you left at the table and you're done though.
Right, right. I gotcha. So it's just like a different like mindset, I imagine, just at that university regarding being self-sufficient.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, self-sufficient and just the community I guess took a lot of pride in their public spaces.
Okay. Yeah. So now you went to this university. Did they do a presentation for the group?
They gave a guided tour.
Oh, nice. Okay. So I guess it was meant to maybe inspire people to study abroad. Yeah.
Yes, they were
Yeah.
definitely recruiting. Yeah.
Yeah. Any interest in potentially furthering I know you already have your master's, looking for a second master's, a PhD. Is that on the horizon for you?
I don't know if it's on the horizon, but every morning the thought does cross my mind. So
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I feel like I'm a big fan of lifelong learning. I've actually considered looking into getting my PhD. Like I already have my master's. I'm thinking, how long would it take me to get a PhD? So like I feel like it's important to just to continue learning. However it is you're going to learn, PhD or not. Like I'm a big fan of lifelong learning. I think it makes us live longer and it helps us contribute to, our surroundings. Now you said you got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, was that breakfast, lunch, and dinner always like in one location, or did they take you places for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
breakfast was traditionally at one of the local cafes. They would take us to a diverse spread of restaurants.
Okay. So it wasn't always just like eating Hungarian food, morning, noon, and night. Like they did other things as well with you guys.
Yeah, you saw the spectrum of Hungarian food. So there was like a more upscale restaurant
Mhm.
one time,
Okay.
or when we were out in the countryside, it was more of like a pate on bread, you know. And you saw how they raised the animals. You were able to make pretzels for like a not a for afterwards. I guess it could be part of the meal or a dessert, whatever it would be
Right.
classified as. Um,
Okay. So it wasn't just city experience in Budapest. Like you said, you did go outside the city. So
yes.
you went out to see like what a typical like farm experience would be, like out in the countryside.
Yes. There was a winery in the countryside we visited,
Okay.
so we toured. They kept I can't remember the exact species, but it's a species that's only in Hungary, and you know it has like the big
Is it a pig?
No,
Was it
so a cow.
a
It was a
cat?
bull.
Oh, okay.
Bull.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You were able to feed it. It was, at first as an anxious person, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get gored. But actually, the cows and the bulls were they were very kind and just happy to be fed,
Oh,
and they
that's
were very
awesome.
appreciative. There was a ruins of a castle there that we got to go visit, and then we ended the day having goulash down in the and touring the winery itself.
Oh, that's pretty great. So you definitely had lots of experiences in the city and outside the city. What would be like some of your most memorable experiences when you went on this Reconnect Birthright trip? What stood out for you?
The Sencheney baths were definitely one. Just that's a unique experience. Like
Yeah,
it's if you were to describe it, I guess people would either lean like a Hurricane Harbor or like water park, or they
okay.
would go like a Sojo like spa. I think those
Yeah,
are the two ways you could go if you describe it. But
right. So
it
now, were you aware that Hungary had these thermal bath situations happening there before you had gone on this trip?
yes, I was aware that they had the baths, but I really just thought of it as I guess more like a spa.
Right. And were you surprised that the water was thermal, like geothermal? And it was more than just like an Instagram photo opportunity that like there actually is like geological like meaning behind these baths. Was that something you're like, oh, I didn't realize, right?
Yes, it's something. Once you're standing there,
Yeah.
you just start thinking, wow, this is insane. Both this is just whatever the universe manifesting, geologically, culturally, historically,
Yeah.
into this very unique space.
Yeah, that's a really professional way to say that. Um, but it is pretty cool. I remember the first time we had gone to Hungary with our family. Um, I'm always like not the only, but I'm generally like the planner, and was aware of the geothermal experiences, and I was telling my husband, I'm like, yeah, it's like geothermal. The water comes up from the ground, and not that he doesn't believe me, because I think he does have faith in the things that I say.
Mm.
That I'm actually doing research, and we were out on a tour for something else, and the tour guide mentioned the baths. And he asked the tour guide, not that he was fact checking me. He's like, "Oh, so like, do they heat the water up?" And she's like, "No. As a matter of fact, they actually have to cool the water down before it hits the Sechenyi baths or any of the baths because it is so hot coming up from the ground." And I was like, you know what I mean? Like I knew he was
Mm.
fact checking me, but it's a pretty cool concept that the fact that they have to cool the water off so it doesn't like scald us, which is pretty cool. So is that the only thermal bath experience that you had on the Reconnect trip?
Yeah, I stayed exclusive to the
Okay.
Sencheney bath.
Okay. Okay. So there's definitely more for you to try next time. So what's something else that stood out to you as a unique experience that maybe you didn't even know that you were going to experience? Or it could be something like you were so glad that you were finally able to see this thing or experience this thing in Hungary that you've been reading about like your entire life.
When we went to I'm gonna try one, Tihine.
Behind? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, at the Abbey there. When we were going through like that early medieval, the founding of Hungary,
Yeah.
I really enjoy that
Right.
history. Um, but just geeking out, there's a video game that I play with my friends. It's called Crusader Kings, where you play as like a historical figure and you
Yeah.
play out the history of like the medieval family. Uh,
Okay.
so me and my friends like to play Hungary. We like to play the various dukes during the time of King Salman, who would later be King Giza, King Andrash. And King Salman had a brother, Prince David. Uh,
Okay.
and he would always be he was usually played by a computer, but he would be our nemesis in the game, just doing stuff. You always trying to ruin our plans.
Right.
But I never really looked into his history.
Right.
He actually was not really involved in the political games that were going on during that time. He became a monk, and he was actually buried at that cemetery. I knew
Wow.
King Andrew was buried there, but just they were like, "Oh, this is the grave of Prince David," and I was like, I started talking with the hostess. I was like, oh, it's that Prince David. So, I took a photo with it, and I was like, hey, guess who I just met?
Oh my God. That's so funny that like your worlds were colliding, like
Yeah.
your online world of gaming and
Mhm.
actually being in the historical location of where that gaming situation was happening. And like I appreciate that because I feel like my family's traveled as well. And my son played a lot of, similar games,
Mhm.
maybe not that specific one. And I remember him saying, "Oh, I was here in a video game. I jumped on that and then I jumped onto that." So, like I feel that. Like I feel you do learn. There's value in everything, even video games. So that's pretty amazing that who knew when you signed up for Reconnect Hungary and the Birthright trip that you were going to make that connection with your video game friends and the game that you play by visiting there, this historical site, this real historical site, which is pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome that you sent a picture to your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. There was also I have to talk about this. Our group were big karaoke fans.
Okay.
The entire group.
Yeah.
So on one of the last nights, we went out and we heard about this place, Bluebird Karaoke,
Okay.
and we went there and we all just sang our hearts out that night.
That's
It was a
pretty
lot of
awesome.
American Boy, just some.
That's funny. Well, that's a good segue into my next question. You were with these new friends for over 2 weeks. Tell us about that experience with Reconnect Hungary, meeting these people. Tell me about where some of these people were from, because I believe Reconnect is an experience for US and Canadian people,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep.
So tell me where the people were from and tell me about like the friendships that you created with this experience.
I went into some of the people on the group knew each other.
Hmm.
I knew absolutely no one. I had never met any of these people before
Okay.
except for on that Zoom call, and I was surprised. I was one of the only two New Jersey people.
Oh,
there was one. I live in Monroe, and
okay.
one of the other women, Nicole, was from North Brunswick, and we actually had some mutual friends.
Oh, small world,
Which
right?
small world situation, but
Yeah.
you really got to know everybody else on on the group, and you made some lifelong friendships. Most of the group was either from there was quite a few people from New York,
Hmm.
Philadelphia,
Right.
and Pittsburgh, and we
Okay.
had one Canadian.
Okay. All right. At least they were
Yep.
representing, which is great. So now I'm sure you're still in contact with these friends that you made. Any plans to meet up with them again, or have you since the trip?
I had one plan that fell through. It was completely on me.
Okay.
I was supposed to meet up with my friend Dylan to go. There was a movie night at the Hungarian consulate in
Okay.
New York, but I had an emergency
Yeah. Well,
pop up.
life
So
happens. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, life happens. So, but that's great. But it does have opportunities for you. So, I feel another big factor of participating in Reconnect Hungary's Birthright program is the friendships you make because if you do apply for this program, you're doing it because you want to do this. It's not like your parents are forcing you to do this, hopefully, but like you're doing it because you want to and you want to meet people and expand your horizons and learn more about your heritage. But it's pretty nice that you can sign up for this program, interview, and go on it and just make these lifelong friendships, like you said.
Yeah, and it also it really deepened my connection, I guess, with the Hungarian American identity. Augie was from Philly, and she was talking a lot about her personal history growing up, half Polish,
Yeah.
half Hungarian. Cameron was also from Philly. He had just a extensive, deep knowledge of films, and he was just
Okay.
recommending, hey, like if you like this, like if you like this style of film, like here's this claymation film
Oh,
in Hungarian, like
oh, cool.
go check it out. Um, uh, Dylan, Shayna, and Max were really great people to talk to, and just you could always rely on them to say. Especially because they also came from a Jewish background,
Okay.
and just like, hey, like what does this mean to you, or
Right.
just like, hey, could I get a little more context on that? And they were
Right.
always willing to share and educate.
Oh, that's
uh
great.
and then Maura, Taylor, and Molly had they were all from Pittsburgh. So one of my close friends, he married a girl from Pittsburgh, and she was Polish, so she mostly talked about these like Eastern European traditions that were, I guess that lean towards Polish, but
Right.
just talking with them about the growing up, you're like, oh wow, like both Pittsburgh and Columbus, like
Mm-hmm.
there's these huge Hungarian communities there too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's like it definitely like broadened your understanding of where more groups of Hungarians, emigrated to in the US, which because you met people on the trip from there.
and then
Yeah.
the Canadian, he spoke the best
Yeah.
Hungarian out of everyone.
Okay.
Like, I was pretty good with. There was a game where you had to come up with a Hungarian word, and they started with the letter. And I just had names or like historical
Right.
events, so like our
Right.
places. So when it went back through that second round, I started running out. It was me and him, and I started running out of gas. But his was beautiful. It
That's
was
awesome.
truly a language. Yeah,
I feel like I remember playing that game in Hungarian class with our teacher. You remember like we'd have to like
yeah,
come up with
yeah,
different words? Yeah.
yeah.
But I imagine that you have lots of words in your word bank that got you to the final round there. So that sounds pretty great. I feel like you've told us so many amazing things about your experience, participating in this Hungarian birthright trip through Reconnect Hungary. Like I can't imagine like someone not wanting to have this experience. So, a requirement for the Reconnect obviously was the application and the interview, but on the back end, after the trip, you're required to complete an alumni obligation. What is the alumni obligation that they ask you to do, or what are the parameters of the alumni obligation? Tell us about that.
So there was different options. I think could have like a social media component, which was sharing. A lot of us just do that because we're very passionate, and having gone on the experience, we're very passionate about, if you have Hungarian heritage, like this,
Hmm.
this is changing. Since I'm more local, like I'm looking to volunteer more, especially now that my work has started to ramp down.
Great.
And I'm even roping in my younger brother to go volunteer.
Nice.
Him and I are he is an amazing cook. I'm a pretty good cook, so
Yeah.
we'll see what opportunities are there for the Hungarian festival this year.
Oh, well, I could definitely hook you up with people
Yeah.
to satisfy your volunteering, and your brother too. So there's lots of different
Mhm.
opportunities at the festival. We could talk about that another
Yeah.
time, though.
Yeah.
So, did you complete your alumni obligation yet, or are you working towards it right now?
I'm working towards it. There is the yearly banquet at the consulate. I was
Okay.
planning to have used my obligation to volunteer at that, but unfortunately, it was scheduled the same day I had a work conference in.
Right, right. Well, that's a bummer because we would have seen each other there because I
Mhm,
attended that event, but that's okay. Maybe you'll go next year and we'll see each other before that, but it'll
mhm.
be fun to go to that event. It was a lot of fun. That's great. It seems like they're not pressuring, like Reconnect is not pressuring you to fulfill this obligation like within the first 30 days upon your return. They want it to be a little bit more meaningful, so they're giving you time to complete that.
Yes, it's organic. It's more of a promise. You don't really feel it's not like a pressure like you need to do this. It's more of just continuing to keep you involved.
Yeah, and connected, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
and
that's really the whole purpose is to deepen your connection. I imagine that's what, they tell you that because you're trying to reconnect to your Hungarian heritage. Okay. I'm gonna hit you with a funky question. Ready? So if you were representative of the Reconnect program, give us your best elevator pitch or like a few sentences as to why people should apply to be accepted into the Reconnect Hungary Birthright experience. Go.
if you love to travel,
Mhm.
if you love amazing food, if you love meeting new people, and if you love having amazing experiences, Reconnect is the trip for you.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that argument. I feel like they should hire you to be part of that could be your volunteering program.
Volunteer, yeah.
You should talk to Gabby and maybe she'll let you volunteer at the Reconnect Hungry table at the festival.
I did the table
Yeah?
before I even went on the trip.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, now you have even more information to share with people. So, okay. So let's do like fast 5 questions because I feel like we could talk about Reconnect and we can talk about Hungary for hours, but I want to find out a little bit more specifics about your experience. We'll do a fast 5 questions.
Got
Obviously,
it.
you can give extra answers if you feel you need to, because sometimes it's hard to pinpoint like one thing. First one, what was your favorite food that you ate on this trip?
It was. I have two.
Okay,
It's
tell
tough.
me.
Uh, the first day we were there, Gabi took us to a restaurant that was around her corner,
Hmm.
and it was her duck, her roast duck,
Okay.
and potato pancakes with it, and
Mm,
with some coleslaw, and red cabbage. That was amazing.
sounds delicious. What's the
Uh,
second one?
and then there was during the scavenger hunt, we had to go to a restaurant and order an Hungarian. Uh,
Oh,
my
wow.
family was actually in Budapest at the same time. They were doing their own
Oh, wow.
travel experience. Yeah, they did Austria and Hungary,
That's
um,
great.
and the Czech Republic. But they recommended a restaurant, Meatology, and
Okay.
it was you could get there was like you could get chicken paprikash there, but it was like a burger restaurant, and it was one of the best burgers I've ever had.
Well, I'm gonna have to try that out because I'm heading there soon. So,
Yeah, yeah,
Meatology.
yep, yep.
Okay.
It's right by St. Stephen's Basilica.
Okay.
It's like
By
right
St.
behind it.
Stephen's. Awesome. I'm putting that on my list.
Yeah.
So, I'm
Yeah,
taking your
I'll send it to you too. So
awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I know some people might say there's only one beverage you can choose, but what beverage was your favorite during this Hungarian Reconnect experience?
my answer will always be coffee. That was another thing
Okay.
I did not realize. Actually, I would say that was my biggest surprise. I had
Okay.
never put, I always thought Hungary and wine, or
Yeah.
like the beer, the or like what was it, Shoros, the
Mm-hmm.
wine mixed with like the seltzer, that was extremely
Yeah.
good. But
Mm-hmm.
the coffee scene in Budapest is amazing. I had a wide variety. It was very eclectic. There was
Okay.
Americanas. They would put pistachios, Nutella in the coffee. They did
Okay.
their take on this Japanese cold brew called Mitsudashi, where they
Okay.
threw in an orange slice.
Wow.
I saw it on the menu. Goat Herder was my favorite of the coffee shops. I
Goat
thought that
herder. Okay.
the cold brew was not going to be good with the orange slice in it.
Yeah.
It was delicious. It was refreshing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool because I mean, you may know now, but the coffee or cafe scene has always been a very popular thing in Budapest, but in many European countries and cities. So that's a really cool answer that you said coffee because most people would think, "Oh, it's the palinka," or "Oh, it's the wine." But like that's a great answer, the coffee. And you said the Goat Herder was your favorite coffee shop?
The Goat Herder was my favorite.
All
Yeah.
right, excellent. That's a surprising answer, but yet very cool answer to your favorite beverage. So, tourist site. What was your favorite tourist site when you went to Budapest?
It has to be the St. Cheney Baths.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though people say, "Oh, it's just such an Instagram, opportunity," but it is still pretty cool. So, outside of Budapest, did you have a favorite place that you visited on this Reconnect tour?
Lake Balaton.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous there.
Hmm.
It was one of those places where it's calling you. Like I still feel the urge. Like I have to go back and spend more time there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the fact that Reconnect takes their participants during the summer months, you really get the fulfilling lavender fields. I'm sure it was
Mhm.
beautiful when you visited. So, okay. So clearly you were much inspired by the Reconnect Hungary Birthright trip. Last question of the Fast Five. When you return to Hungary, because I know you will, what do you think is the first thing you're going to do other than have coffee at that coffee shop? Like, what's something either you want to do again or do because you didn't get a chance to do on this trip?
Uh, I didn't get to go to the Holocaust Museum there, and
Okay,
that was something I really wanted to see.
that's pretty cool. Did you go into the Jewish Quarter at all?
Yes, we visited one of the synagogues in the Jewish Quarter, and
Right.
we took a tour. It was gorgeous, and it was also just how it was a former like church, and
Yeah.
it just the architecture it was gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a pretty moving experience. I
Mhm.
imagine that you also went to one of the famous ruin bars, which is in the Jewish Quarter, right?
Yes, I
The
went to many of the ruin bars. Nicole, who I mentioned before, she did study abroad in
Right.
Budapest for college, so she had all the nightlife spots picked out. So it was
It's good to
pretty.
have someone with the
Yeah.
inside scoop. Actually, I didn't ask that question before. Like, what did you do on your downtime? Did they
Yeah,
give you downtime, and what did you do?
there was downtime. A lot of it for me was sleeping, resting, but
Okay.
also just going back through like our some of our old. I made MP3s of our talks, so just to like, oh God, like I'm going here. Let me go through all the food options so I know.
Right. Oh, that's
Um,
smart.
there was also I visited the Budapest Zoo too, and
Okay.
that was one of my fun activities for downtime, and
Nice.
it was a great experience.
That's great. Okay, so the timing was right for your life, right? In your own personal life, you applied to Reconnect Hungary and you enjoyed this experience. How would you wrap it up? How did Reconnect reignite your interest in making closer connections with your Hungarian heritage? Like, what are some things that you personally feel that you've gained or that you want to do now that you've had this experience with Reconnect?
Reconnect is one of those experiences where it's so unique. Like when I describe it to my friends, I don't even put it in my the trips I've done to Italy or to France, even with the study abroad. Like it's its own beautiful experience, and it truly is Reconnect. Um,
Yeah,
it was the people you met and the experiences you had. Just the vision that Gabi had.
yeah,
It just changes the way you think of things.
yeah,
Like, when I'm talking to my parents, if we're talking about their trip, we both had amazing times, but just having it enriched in your heritage, it's just different.
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like, like you can study abroad, which is great because you're getting like the experience of whatever country you're studying abroad in, but you're also like required to do like college work, right? But like this is all about just connection to your heritage. So it's like a deeper experience.
Yeah, you feel like you're unlocking a part of yourself that you didn't know was there, but was always in there. It's something inherent. Just
Yeah.
that's the best way I can describe it.
I've been to Hungary many times, and the feelings that you're describing, like I do feel even every time that I go back, there's just this like inherent connection that I felt like was missing for so long in my life, when I was younger, historically, I didn't really have the opportunity to go, and just the fact that, we can visit now, you can visit now, you've had this experience. I feel like you're a great inspiration for other people that might have been on the fence of thinking like, "Ah, I don't know, should I apply? Shouldn't I apply?" If the timing is right, you should definitely apply. So obviously, like your experience was probably similar to many of the other friends that you met, these lifelong friends. Have you planned your next trip to Hungary? Are you thinking about it? What's
I
next for you?
I have not planned my next trip to Hungary. I see that Reconnect Transylvania, one
Mm-hmm.
of the other programs that they
Yeah.
offer, and I think that there's a real chance that I in one day finish out the application.
Well, obviously, I'm going to say you should 100% do it because if not now, when, right? Because
Yep.
you're definitely in a great place in life right now, great timing for you. I say do it. I say apply. And I think it's important to point out too that there are other trips with Reconnect Hungary, which you mentioned, Reconnect Transylvania. And then they also have trips where it's 29 plus, so that like if you're older, because I would be 29 plus, like many plus to 29, it gives people like older adults, because clearly you're an adult, but like older adults the opportunity to do the 29 plus for Hungary, for Transylvania. But I think you should apply for the Reconnect Transylvania. I think that would be pretty amazing. Thank you so much for sharing about your experience, Stephen, with Reconnect Hungary's Birthright program. If people were on the fence, I don't think they will be now with all the great places that you talked about and the experiences that you had there. It's an extremely fulfilling experience as you communicated with us. So if you're on the fence, put your application in now. Stephen, put your application in for Reconnect Transylvania. We'll definitely have you back on the podcast after next summer if you go to Reconnect Transylvania, because we'll want to hear all about that as well. But thank you so much for being here today on the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, sharing about Reconnect Hungary, sharing about this Hungarian Birthright experience. It was a pleasure to connect with you here on the podcast as we've connected in other Hungarian situations in the past. Thanks so much, Stephen. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure being on.
Absolutely, Stephen. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. And thanks so much to Stephen Dalina for telling us all about his amazing experience with Reconnect Hungary. If you are ready to submit your application for this summer's Reconnect Hungary Birthright trip, the information on how to apply can be found in the show notes. Like Stephen said, why not me? So why not you? Take the next step and send in your application today. If you have feedback or questions about this episode, or you would like to connect with me at the podcast, you will also find that information in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode and you're interested in learning more about this Hungarian heritage community, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with special license from Envato Market. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, make sure you stay Hungarian Heritage Strong. Sziasztok!